All right, everyone, welcome to our Saturday speaker meeting. I'm Kurt, the Executive Director of the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am kind of excited because, I don't think we've had Gail Ludwig speak at a group at least a couple years, at least since I've been around. So today we have Gail Ludwig, who is a speech language pathologist with really decades of experience serving the San Diego brain injury community. Gail does some work at our residential care facility, Howard House. Gail is really well known in this community. Some of you may know her, may have worked with her. Gail's going to be talking about, I think, an important topic, particularly in light of what's going on these days, the importance of relationship development between survivors and loved ones, caregivers, and therapists. So Gail has a great presentation lined up for all of us today. So with no further ado, we'll get started. So Gail, if you could, you're going to want to share your screen. Anything else you want to say introductory wise?
I just want to say I'm so excited about doing this. This is something I'm really passionate about. And gosh, there are a lot of people here. I'm really happy that you're all here. Too bad we couldn't meet in person, but as Kurt said, this is really the best for right now, given the environment that we're in. So I am going to share my PowerPoint.
All right. And Gail, is there may be some other things you want to say in terms of introducing yourself? I do what I can with that, but you can introduce yourself much better.
Well, this is really interesting, Kurt, that the very first slide after this title is the slide about me.
Perfect. Wow. I like that segue.
So, since I'm so focused on relationships and that's my passion, I figured the first thing I needed to do was tell all of you a little bit about me so that you could feel like you're building a little bit of a relationship with me. I am a speech therapist, as Kurt said. I have been working in the field for almost 40 years now, all different kinds of settings, from hospitals to home care to residential facilities, even schools and clinics. I've had a lot of different experiences, and that's the great thing about being a speech therapist, is there are lots of opportunities for speech therapists. But what really changed my life and the direction of my work was 14 years ago when I started relationship development intervention training. And the acronym is RDI, Relationship Development Intervention, and it is traditionally an intervention for working with families with children with autism. But I have found that the principles of RDI have applied across my life, both in my career, working with all different kinds of clients. And I really feel like I've had two career paths. My longer career path has been in working with brain injury. But for the last 14 years, I've also worked with autism. And today, a lot of what I'm going to be talking about are the principles of RDI. I'm a business owner. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I have 2 children and 2 stepchildren. I'm a grandmother, 6 grandchildren. I've been blessed with 6 grandchildren. I'm a daughter. Both my parents are still living. I'm a colleague to those who work with me. I'm a friend. And I really try to keep in mind all the time that my priority is to build strong relationships. I am going to be talking about 2 relationships today. My relationship with my dad and a relationship with one of my clients, who is a newer client of mine, client that I've worked with for about a little over a year. And I asked him what he wanted me to call him today, and he said, "Oh, just call me Isaiah," which is not his real name. Absolutely, you can be Isaiah for the talk. the reason I decided to talk about my dad, and I have tissues here just in case I need them, is that my dad had a stroke in October of 2020. So he is now part of the brain injury community. And I have to say, in all the years that I've been working in brain injury, I never knew what it was like until I had a family member that had a brain injury. I was blown away by the experience, and I continue to be blown away by the experience of having a close family member with a brain injury. So actually right now, I would like to open it up to audience participation, because I don't want this to be all about me or my relationships. I want you all to be thinking about your relationships. And first, I'd like you to think about how you would define yourself. Know that I can see the chat, Kurt. So I see that people are saying who they are. And I'm going to just start all the way at the top here. A mother, a child of God, adventurous, an advocate, a recreational therapist. We are a family. I love that. Hopeful, a warrior.
Yeah.
And my belief is that all of us are on a life journey, and that we all will continue to improve in our ability to communicate, whether we had a brain injury or not, in our ability to relate to each other. I believe that we continue to evolve and improve as long as that's our mindset, that growth mindset. So a few more that I want.
Answering my question.
You're welcome. Somebody is
Okay.
defining themselves as shy, a survivor, trying to find a new normal together. I love that, togetherness.
Yeah, there's some great comments in here.
Confident. Thank you all so much for sharing. Okay, we're going to move on to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about what I consider the key principles of relationship development. And each of these, except for one, I'm going to be going into in more detail, and I'll stop at the one that I don't have another slide for. We develop relationships through shared experiences, sharing our emotions and memories. Trust is, I think, the most important element of a relationship. Certainly it is with my clients, and probably with everyone I relate to. Collaboration is another really important principle. We'll talk more about how we guide each other in relationships by giving feedback to each other. The best ways to communicate with each other. The importance of non-judgment and the reflection process. So I just want to say a little bit about non-judgment. And, you know, I know that everybody is tired of talking about COVID, but I just think that's something that I've really worked hard on during the last 2 years, of not judging how people are responding to COVID, because everybody responds differently. Everybody has their own ideas and values. And it's been, I think, a challenge for all of us to try not to judge other people when it comes to COVID. Let's move on. And I'll talk just a little bit more about non-judgment in my work. You know, I work with all different kinds of people, and they come from all different kinds of backgrounds, and our values are not necessarily the same. And a lot of the time I spend with my clients is really just in having conversations with them and trying to understand their perspective and their thought process. And people will say all kinds of things to me. And I really try to just sit with it rather than judge it. And I think that that's really helped me personally and professionally. So now I want to get into a little bit more about sharing experiences and how that leads to sharing our emotions and our memories and developing memories. And I want to encourage you to think about this too, of shared experiences that you've had lately with people. I mean, they're not always positive. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I don't know if I can go back, but that's okay. I guess what I want to share is that I had a really cool experience during Christmas this year. My family went out to Joshua Tree and we all enjoyed our time at an Airbnb and just kind of bonded for a few days and played games at this house. I played basketball with my grandchildren in the garage. We played games, we cooked together, we ate together, we watched movies together, and it was a real bonding experience. And I'd like to open it up now to all of you to share with us a recent experience that you shared with family or friends, either over Christmas or during this last year, something that created a memory, an emotional memory for you. Old friends back in town. I love that. It's such a great opportunity for a shared experience for old friends to get together and build new memories, right? Oh, meeting grandpa at his assisted living and hearing his old stories. That is so beautiful. I started a conga line once at the ball drop on New Year's Eve at a restaurant. Wow, we danced and had a great time. What a great, positive, emotional memory. Having a wonderful trip to Mexico on a cruise where we were together as a family without any real distractions. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I just wanted to share that I speak to my dad. Speaking of my journey with my dad, I try to speak to him almost every day and share some kind of a memory with him. Today, we talked about when we each owned a cat, and he shared about his cat and I shared about my cat, and he remembered a funny story about my cat that disappeared for 6 weeks and then came back. And it just was nice to share that memory because it connected us emotionally. And my dad's all the way back in Maryland, so I don't get to see him that frequently, but I try to FaceTime with him every day and have a connection that just we recall a memory or we have an experience listening to a song together. Another memory that was shared was getting together with our children and grandchildren for the first time since the accident. Wow, that's big. That's a big step forward. Good for you. Good for you. Well, these pictures that are going by in the background, we have someone that wants to say something, I think. Oh, maybe they're just interpreting. That's okay. I'll move on. So this is a place I've always wanted to go. I wonder if anybody knows where this family has traveled to with this huge turtle. It's an island that's on my bucket list.
Is that Costa Rica? I don't know.
No, I don't think so, but it could be, I guess. But when I searched it, oh, someone put something in the chat. Yes,
Galapagos. Wow, okay.
That is correct.
They win a
And
prize.
when my mother and her significant other went to the Galapagos Islands and took a video and showed me that video, I was blown away. So that is something that is definitely on my bucket list. And talk about memories. Oh my gosh. Absolutely incredible memories from a trip like that, for sure. I don't know if anybody in this group has ever gone zip lining, but I just loved this picture. Talk about a shared experience. These two look like they're having the time of their lives. Exciting and scary, I would think, and exhilarating. So when we have these experiences, there's all different kinds of emotions that we feel and that we share together. And I just listed some of them here, and it might make you think of your relationships and sharing of feelings. And I want you to know that, when I do therapy, I share my own experiences. I try to share experiences that are related to the experiences that my clients are going through. Times when they might have to do something new and are feeling scared or nervous. I'm just looking in the chat. Oh, somebody talked about being in Hawaii and zip lining when they were there. Great memory. Great memory. Thank you for sharing. Or a time when I was frustrated. If someone is sharing, one of my clients is sharing a frustrated experience, I'll share something similar and how I coped. Or even ways that we relax. Because when we share with each other about our experiences, it helps us not feel alone. And it also gives us ideas of how to cope. There's all kinds of experiences that we have that help us build relationships. And, with my dad, I play a lot of music for him. He loves music. And recently we've been on the Beatles, and we've listened to Beatles music together. And sometimes when he can't hear the song well, I'll ask him to have Alexa play it, so he can hear it in his own environment. And I'm trying to think of, with my client, Isaiah, believe it or not, I've never met him. He lives in Julian, and I do have a goal of getting out there to his house and seeing what it's like. And, it is really nice to be able to be with a client in their home environment. And that's the good thing about my work, is that I don't have an office. So I do try to visit my clients when I can. I think at this point, all my clients are local. But just doing things together builds relationships. And again, with my dad, I'm pulling it up now on my phone. I try to tell him some jokes. And I have to say, yesterday, I was able to overlap with one of the sessions at Howard House. And the client, right away, she wanted to tell me jokes. And some of the jokes that I'm going to tell right now are ones that she told me. And it was just such a great way to emotionally connect with her. So here's the first one. Did you ever hear about the young actor who fell through the floorboards? He was just going through a stage. What did the big flower say to the little flower? Hey, bud. Of course, I can't hear you guys all laugh. I hope you're laughing or smiling.
I'm laughing, Gail.
What is a balloon's least favorite music? I don't know. Maybe you guys want to guess that one, because I actually guessed the right answer for that one.
Pop.
You got it, Kurt. And I love this one too. Why is a koala not actually a bear? because it doesn't meet the qualifications. Ha ha ha. I told my dad these jokes this morning, and I have to say I didn't get a laugh out of him, but I thought they were good.
Hey, Gail, this is Kurt. And if I could interrupt just quickly, because there is an important question, I think, in the chat. One thing that strikes me, like when you showed some pictures of people ziplining and in the Galapagos, and those are pretty, big, intense experiences. But certainly I like this list because it really kind of informs us that, the importance of sharing experiences, but the experiences can be very simple, right? They can be very simple things, whether it's, listening to music or sharing a meal or cooking, things that we can all do, even if we don't have the resources to be in the Galapagos or something like that now, or the ability to go zip lining or something like that. But somebody put a question in the chat saying, what if I don't have anybody to share experiences with? And that's part of like, building, new relationships. And I know that many times, after a brain injury, folks may lose some of their or all of their, sort of social network. So I think that that's an important question for us to think about.
I think it's a really important question. And I think you're right, Kurt, that at certain times in our lives, we need to work on building new relationships, whether it be after a brain injury or after a move or after, retirement or after, your kids leave home and you're at a new stage of life. And I think it's, about trying to get out of that comfort zone and see what kind of opportunities you can take advantage of. And certainly the San Diego Brain Injury Foundation is a great place to start, because something that everybody has in common, either working with brain injury or experiencing a brain injury or having a family member with a brain injury. I think the walk coming up is a good opportunity to hopefully see people in person, and even just share a conversation could be on this list too. There's all different kinds of clubs and meetups out there. Even on Zoom, I'm not so big. I mean, I know about the stuttering community has a really strong community of like Zoom meetings, but I think that that's a good place to start, like just looking to see what you can join online.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer, Gail, and really, kind of stepping outside of your comfort zone and understanding that, there's opportunities that exist out there. There's all kinds of communities that exist out there that may be related to a situation you're experiencing, like brain injury. And the Brain Injury Foundation, part of what we do is build community, but also, things that may interest you. If you're interested in a particular thing, there's probably a group out there where you could, meet some new people. But it is sometimes difficult to have the initiative to step outside of your comfort zone or your current situation and connect with people. And so, I really encourage folks, I don't know if you have comments about that, but I really encourage folks to, work on developing the confidence to step outside of their comfort zone and connect with others. And I think part of developing that that confidence is just realizing how important social relationships are in our lives.
Absolutely. There was a contribution in the chat: join the Comebackers Neuro Club. And that's something that I hadn't heard of. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that.
That's a good group. I think they're kind of focused on stroke, but that's definitely a good, fairly well-known group out there. That is a great suggestion.
So this is just about sharing like what we talk about with people. For example, if you wind up going to the walk, what is it that we share with each other? And I work a lot with caregivers as well. And I encourage them to share with the residents that they care for about themselves. about what they did over the weekend, about their favorite food, about dreams that they have, about something they like to do. Because that relationship is so important when you are with people and caring for people every day. You want to take time to talk to each other. So now I want to open it up to all of you to share something about yourself. And I guess I want to go back to Isaiah now, my relationship with him. You know, our sessions are very informal. And even though I call it speech therapy, it's really more just guiding him and supporting him in his life. And so I have to stop and listen to what's been going on with him and help him prioritize and problem solve. And a lot of times I'm also sharing about my own experiences. And I thought somebody was going to share something about something they did recently, but I don't see it here. So, I've been lying low. So I have to say that I haven't really done anything over the weekend because I'm getting ready to go to Maryland to see my dad. And so my weekends have been kind of boring, although I have been enjoying football and my dad really loves football. And so I've been watching football games and we talked about football this morning. And so that's something that he's sharing with me, his interest in football, and I'm learning from him. So I love what you guys are chatting about now. You're not really chatting about what we're talking about in this presentation, but what you're doing is you're connecting with each other. So I encourage that kind of connection. There's a question about what an AVM is, and it's a arteriovenous malformation in the brain that can cause brain injury or stroke. And there's somebody that is giving information about the Comebackers Neuro Club. And I just love it. I love the fact that you guys are communicating with each other through the chat and trying to gain information from each other, because that's what relationships are about. Let's move to the next slide. Oh, recalling memories together. I don't know how many of you have Google Photos, but I just love the feature of Google Photos because the feature will pop up. It'll say like 4 years ago today, and there'll be like a little slideshow or something. And oftentimes I will take that slideshow and I'll show somebody, either my husband or one of my friends, and we can enjoy those memories, or I can share those memories with someone. And of course, they're the old-fashioned photo albums, just taking the time to sit with someone. And of course, we can always look at those memories on our own and remember times that we shared with others, but it's also fun to sit down together. And that's why I loved this photo of a couple sitting down and looking at a photo album together. How many of you can relate to enjoying pictures of memories that you've made? So, again, I just want to share that for me, when I'm working with a client or a family, it's a collaboration. It's not me like performing a service on them. It's truly a collaboration. I want to hear their ideas. I want it to be a meeting of our minds where I say something, they think about it and respond to what I'm saying. And then I think about what they're saying and respond to it. That's really what a true conversation is. When we are listening to each other and responding to each other and taking the time to do that. Compromises are an important part of relationships, as well as resolving conflict and forgiving each other and seeking solutions. You can probably all relate to times when you've had to compromise, and well, not necessarily had to, but compromise to reach a positive outcome. And when you've had a conflict with someone and you've been able to take the time to think it through and resolve it. And mistakes that you've made or other people have made, and the importance of forgiving, because we're all human. And when you really have a problem, sitting back and seeking solutions. In my work as a director of a company, we always gave the message of, if you have a complaint about something, come with a solution. I'm just going to share, going back to the Google Photos. Somebody was sharing a very important point, that this person actually uses Google Photos to help her husband with his memory recall after a brain injury. What a great idea. I'd like all of you to think about what builds trust. First and foremost, in my relationships with my clients, I want them to feel like they can trust me. And a lot of that has to do with listening and following through with what I've said that I'm going to do, if I'm going to research something for them, or if I'm going to meet with them twice a week. I don't want to be the kind of person that cancels or arrives late to meetings, because I want them to trust that I'm going to be there for them. I want them to trust that what they tell me, I will keep confidential. And I want them to know that I'm committed to the relationship. And the respect, I think that also goes with the non-judgment. I'm going to respect what they bring to the table and what their values are. There is a question that came up that I think is worthy of taking the time to answer and discuss. When I talk about my brain issues to my family, I sometimes feel that I'm not understood because of the advice they give and their reactions to it. What do you advise family members about this? Well, in my experience, oftentimes having a brain injury is a hidden disability, and people don't necessarily believe, your family members sometimes don't believe what you're telling them about your experience, your challenges, your situation. And I just encourage them to learn more about brain injury, because it is a hidden disability oftentimes. I had a client for a long, long time that tried to go back to work, and on the outside, she looked like she should be able to work, but she was so overwhelmed by sensory input that she just could not concentrate on her job. And people really didn't understand that until they learned more about brain injury. I think this is a super important point about trust leading to an openness to guidance. And I'll talk about Isaiah in saying that we really had to build a solid foundation first before he would listen to my opinions and my experience. And it really took me sharing a lot about myself and him getting to know me as a person before I was able to guide him to make some discoveries about prioritizing and follow through and organization and commitment on his end. And it really took time. And I also want to share that with my dad, and this is kind of sad, I had to resign as his therapist, and he accepted my resignation. He did not want that type of relationship with me. He just wanted me to relate to him as his daughter. And that was a hard thing for me to give up because of my work in this field. And, here I think I know what my dad needs, but he told me he needed me to be his daughter and not his therapist. That was really hard for me to swallow. So this is something I learned in my RDI training about the feedback loop. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that before, but it really is how we learn from each other. We share our feedback when somebody tells us something. If they're receptive. If they're not receptive, all bets are off. So we go back to trust. And there's all different kinds of feedback that we give each other. And that's how we learn from each other. These are some of the types of feedback. We might state options to people that they might not have realized themselves. We might share our opinion. We might just state what we're observing that the other person might not have realized. We might share information that we know that the other person doesn't have, just like Kurt just shared with me about that down arrow, although it didn't really work that well, Kurt. I think I found another way. I think it had to do with my cursor, believe it or not.
At least it worked for one slide.
It did, right? I often share my experiences with how I cope with things, and it often helps my clients. Very important to acknowledge people's feelings and also share your own feelings in terms of giving feedback. So here are some specific examples of giving feedback. This happened with Isaiah just the other day when I saw him. I had to say, it seems like you're distracted with something. I'll wait. Because I'm not sure he realized that all of a sudden he wasn't in our conversation anymore and he was looking at something on his phone. And so I was able to increase his awareness of what he was doing by making that statement. I guess that's the difference between, I wasn't really sharing an experience, I was just stating what I was observing. I have a different opinion about that, and this is why. This is really a lot related to my work in the field of autism, and I actually work with a lot of adults as well as children that have autism, and they have very definite opinions about things, and they think their opinion is the only opinion. And so I often guide family members to just give feedback in the way of, well, okay, I accept that this is your opinion, and now I want to share my opinion. It's not that either one is right or wrong, it's that we have different opinions. The next one is specific to giving feedback about a person's speech. And this isn't only people that have had brain injuries. Believe me, there have been plenty of people that I have interacted with that just talked way too fast. And you might have to say, I didn't understand what you said. I think you might have been talking too fast. That increases their awareness maybe in a better way than saying, you need to slow down. The next one is sharing a similar experience. I actually made the same mistake last week. That must have been really frustrating. Maybe something like losing your keys, or not putting your keys where you usually put them. I have to say, I'm always losing my phone in my house. I just will put it down somewhere, and it's the one thing that doesn't have a place. And I'll say, where's my phone? Where's my phone? And I bet a lot of you have that same experience, and it's very frustrating. I remember last time writing down the information was helpful to you. That is definitely feedback I might give in a therapy session. Reminding a client of something that worked for them, that was effective for them in the past. To guide them, that's a good example of guiding them to try the same strategy again. The next one is something I talked to Isaiah about, because he has a meeting that he really doesn't want to go to, but he must attend it because it was a court order. And he really doesn't want to go, and he has all kinds of excuses about why he doesn't want to go. And so I shared with him something that I had to do last week that I didn't want to do, and how I handled it. It happened to be a virtual school meeting that I really didn't want to attend for one of my clients. And then the last one is just acknowledging feelings. Isaiah has definitely said to me before, I really hate to wait. And sometimes we all have to wait for things, and waiting is frustrating. And how do we cope with having to wait? And there's a comment from someone saying, I learned it took a long time for my family and friends to understand about my brain issues. It requires being a patient for both family, friends, and myself. And it might be, I don't know if you meant a patient or patients in general, but we all do have to be patient with each other, because it's a journey for all of us. Some really important communication principles. Acknowledging feelings, and not only acknowledging what they are, but why a person is feeling that way. I can tell you're really frustrated because you can't get that to work. I remember a time recently when I had a hard time getting something on my computer to work, and I just actually had to just walk away from it for a while and calm myself and think about what my options were. Sometimes it's better not to talk so much. And I know I'm talking a lot because I'm giving this talk right now, but sometimes fewer words are better. I like to refer to it as planting a seed, some kind of a concept that I want to get across to somebody. And it's not necessarily going to lead them to a discovery in that moment, but it's going to give them something to think about. When I was mentally prepping for this talk today, I reminded myself to take it slow. At first, for some reason in my mind, I was thinking that we only had an hour. But then when I realized that we had 2 hours, at first I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have that much to say in 2 hours. But then I saw the advantage to it, was just being able to slow down and sit in the information that I'm presenting. I'm sure all of you can relate to feeling rushed or rushing through something just to get to the next thing. I'm going to share something that actually is pretty sad. We had a Zoom. Was it okay, we had a couple Zoom family things recently, and one of them was a gift exchange. And my own mother said, we had decided that we were all going to go around and each open a gift, because we sent gifts to each other all around the country, our family. And my mother said, oh, this is going to take forever. I need to get to my gardening. And I'm like, oh my goodness, let's just sit in the experience and not worry about getting to the next thing. That's something I still work on all the time. And I'm sure many of you can relate to it. You've got this long to-do list, but just sit in what you're doing, especially when you're connecting with someone. My sister called me this morning and I had a million things to do this morning, but she was having a problem. And I just stopped everything and I tried my very best to spend as much time with her as she needed. It turned out I couldn't solve her problem, but she got the message from me that she was a priority to me and that her problem was worth me spending time with her to try to solve it. I listened to her. I tried to understand what her problem was and trace it back to try to find a solution. I do want to say a few minutes later, she texted me and said she found the solution after we hung up, and I was really happy about that. Reducing directives, I touched on a few minutes ago. Telling people what to do isn't always the best way. It often isn't. Lecturing, saying you need to do this is often not going to get the result that you would like to see. But seeking to understand is much more important. This slide has to do with words of encouragement. Helping people feel competent. So I'm going to use your example right now, Karen, in that if I was talking to your family members, I would want to spotlight for you, and I'm going to spotlight for you right now, how well you just did communicating the problem that you're having. And that should make you feel more competent in terms of your communication, that you just shared that problem in front of this whole group and you were able to stay calm and you were able to get your point across. And that will help you feel more competent or build your confidence. And we all need that. We all need people to pat us on the back. We need people to say, that was a really great idea, or you were able to solve that problem. I do that with Isaiah all the time. Right now, he's coping with living with roommates. And he told me he'd really rather not have roommates. And I said, you know, but you're being patient with this process. Look how patient you're being living with these roommates right now, even though that's not your end goal. You're showing yourself and others that you can be patient and to wait for what you want to have in your future. Showing faith in a person. I know you can do it. Maybe for you, Karen, just having your family members give you more time and say, I know you can get that point across. I'll wait. I have faith that, you know, next time you're going to handle that differently. I know I've said that to Isaiah before. Or I have faith that you're going to be able to follow through with what you said you were going to do. I have faith that you'll look at your to-do list and take care of your responsibilities. And specifically highlighting what the person did well or was successful with is so much better than saying good job. And that gets into all my work with parents and teaching parenting skills. Because when you say good job, the person really doesn't know what was good. It's really better to say, wow, you were able to manage your time this morning to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. That was huge. Or you were able to follow through with the strategy that we came up with, and it worked for you. And these are the kinds of things that builds motivation to then try the next thing. Here's some more examples of spotlighting. That was a great effort you put into that class, emphasizing the thought process, the effort somebody puts into something, the decision that they made. What a good decision to ask for more information. It was so helpful that you decided to set the table. That's a decision too. Writing down notes is a great way to help you remember. My dad did that today. He wrote down the teams that were playing in the playoffs and his picks for the games today. He asked his caregiver, give me a pencil and a piece of paper. I should have spotlighted for him. It's a great idea to write that down, Dad. I have no idea the last time he even wrote anything down. It's nice to see you eating slowly. It's safer that way. I would be remiss if I didn't spend a few minutes talking about the importance of nonverbal communication. Did all of you know that 80% of our communication is nonverbal? Nonverbal communication consists of our facial expressions, our gestures, our vocal changes, our body positioning. I often will do this. If I don't change anything at all about what I'm saying, but I turn away from you, you get a whole different impression. That one thing, nonverbal communication conveys our emotions. It can sometimes be less threatening or demanding to someone if we show them maybe what we'd like them to do, or guide them with our gestures, or nodding, or shaking our head. And I'm sure you all can notice the difference between an open body orientation to a closed body orientation. That person all the way over to the right is very closed off, isn't he? That's when we know whether people are receptive to what we're saying or not. So this one, I was reflecting, and we want to get back to Mary's comment about breakdowns in communication. I was reflecting with someone I work with. She said to me that she had a problem. And so last Friday, I went with on a walk with her, and it was a work problem with a family she was working with. And I was thinking about reflecting on the walk that we had together and thinking about what my role was in helping her reflect. I was supporting and encouraging her. I was listening to her. I was sharing my opinions with her. I was sharing an experience that I had with one of my clients that had something in common with her client and how we worked on the problem. And in all those ways, I helped her with problem solving. And she said at the end, I have a direction now. I know exactly what my next step is with this family. And I know Mary's example is much different than this. In this case, I was reflecting to help a colleague. But I think you can reflect on the breakdown and on how you were feeling about not having the time to get your point across, or a person, trying to fill in the blanks for you instead of giving you time to come up with the words, and what you could do differently next time that might give you more of a chance to communicate given your challenges in that area. Yeah. But it's after the fact, after it happens, after everybody has kind of, just gotten out of the conversation. So you're not rushed and you bring it up and say, I'd really like to talk about when we were talking this afternoon. People have been isolated, you're right. Yeah. And we have to learn all over again to build back up relationships. So I decided I needed to write a slide of what does all this mean? And this is what I came up with, and you are going to take what's most important to you away from this talk. When we focus on our relationships, we increase our opportunity for learning and growth. There's no question about that. When we're open to what other people have to say and we receive their feedback and we listen and we think about what they're sharing, it definitely increases our opportunity for learning and growth. We also feel very stimulated and satisfied when we connect in a positive way with another person. I mean, I'm feeling like this talk is going really well. And, as I am kind of reflecting as I'm talking, I am very satisfied with the information and the feedback that I'm getting from all of you today on this really important topic. And if we make it a priority to focus on our relationships and we form good relationships, we feel good about ourselves and each other. And it's such an important part of living a successful life, to find people that we can connect with. And there was someone very early in this talk today that was saying that they didn't really have anybody to do things with. But I want that person to know that they have something to offer others. We all have something to offer other people. And it's up to us to reach out and to get out of our comfort zone a little bit. Everybody has to think about what is just a little bit out of their comfort zone. Doesn't mean that you have to take a huge jump. It might mean that you just attend some kind of a online meetup group and you don't say anything. You just listen. You're just trying to understand what the group's about and listen to other people. That might be the first step for someone. Because I want to encourage you to go out and build relationships.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you putting some time into this today on a Saturday, and what a unique and just highly relevant talk. I loved it, and so I think that they're just really good reminders and pointers and things that we can all take with us as we move through our lives, and work on strengthening the relationships that we have, and even developing new ones, and the importance of this to everybody. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Pleasure.
We have a little bit of time here. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions, you're certainly welcome to unmute yourself and ask those questions. These things are pretty, maybe specific to you and your interests and your particular situation. And so it's hard to give a blanket answer for that, right? I mean, I think, one method is really just, thinking about what your interests are and sort of Googling, what kind of groups may exist, in relation to that. Or, certainly you can connect with us at the Brain Injury Foundation if you're looking for something, specific to your situation, and having a brain injury, and folks that you may be able to connect with in that regard. So I think it's fairly, individualized, this idea, but I think that the message here is that certainly there's something, multiple things for everybody out there. And it's just important to really, kind of take the time, to find some of these groups where you can connect with other folks if you need to really, strengthen or interested in strengthening your social, framework and network. And I think that the message here is that I hope, and I don't know about Gail, but I hope everyone walks away with the message that it's important to consider your social, network and relationships. And so I think that in life, the more focus and attention you put on something, that something, becomes more real and more of a reality. Some people call that manifesting, right? The idea that if you're really, Zara, kind of, putting some additional, focus on, connecting with others and your social network and sharing experiences with others, really naturally and organically over time, that will pay off, and you will start making those connections. But if we ignore this stuff and just go through life every day as we go through life every day, and never put focused attention on something like this and building our social relationships and encouraging those, then nothing changes, right? So I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, Gail, but I know it can be challenging, but I think that the message is kind of the importance of putting some focus in this.
Absolutely. It's about making relationships a priority.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
looking for the opportunities. I mean, it's so, even for my own life, it's so easy to not make it a priority and think you have other things to do, or, you need to watch a TV program or whatever. It's so easy to not be mindful of the opportunities to connect with others.
Well
and there's
stated.
such great payoff when you make it a priority.
Yeah. Don't just think about it, do it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And I again just wanted to give a round of applause to Gail. I loved, loved how you presented this concept. I thought it was really good. And it obviously, Gail, caters to a specialized area of interest that you have. And that's very apparent in how you talk about this stuff, and highly relevant in the environment we live in now and today. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good weekend. Hopefully this message has given you a little bit of inspiration, to pay attention to the people in your life, and finding more people to bring into your life, and putting some effort into that. So again, thank you so much, Gail. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for spending some time with us on a Saturday.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Have a great weekend.
So and don't forget the walk.
Yes. Don't forget to walk. Thank you.